Hello YouTube and welcome to another tutorial brought to you by XL-lence. This is part 1 of the Absolute Beginner series. This is an Absolute Beginner series, so I'm going to assume you have never used Excel before and you've never used any of the other Microsoft applications either. If you're finding it's too basic, then there's also a beginner, intermediate and an advanced series. So go check those videos out. Since this is part 1, we're just going to be taking a look at Excel itself, which is a quick overview of the application and how to get started. So first things first, when you first open Excel, you should be greeted with a screen like this. I have Excel 2016. If you have a different version of Excel, then it may look slightly different, but anything down to Excel 2010 should look fairly similar. Excel might be set up in a way that it just takes you straight into a spreadsheet. That's fine if it does. But for those that get this screen, what we have on the left here is any recent workbooks that we have opened. If we want to open any other workbook, we can click on this button here. And here on the main part, we have just a blank workbook and some templates that we can use if we wanted. There's a lot of templates out there, and you can find more online, or flick through these different categories at the top here to see if anything gives you what you need and does what you need already. It'll save you a lot of time if it does. So for now, we're just going to go into a blank workbook. So I click on that and I have the blank workbook. So in the center here, we have the main Excel spreadsheet. This is where you would enter all of the data, any formulas, equations, etc. Everything like that goes on these white squares in the center here. So just above this main worksheet area, we have the column headers, and these use the alphabet from A all the way across to XFD. So you've got quite a few columns there. And on the left hand side, we have the row numbers, and this goes all the way down to 1,048,576 rows. So you have a lot of room here to play. So it's a lot of cells, a lot of space to store of your data, a lot of room for any graphs. Now, technically speaking, you don't want to be using all of those cells because Excel will start to slow down tremendously when you get anywhere above 100,000 rows of data. I think it's more there to provide the ability if needed, or to provide more space if you had something else, say in the top few rows that wasn't necessarily data, and then the data was further down. It would just provide more space. Okay, and above the column headers, we have the formula bar. This is where you can enter any of the information you might want to enter into the cells, formulas, text, etc. You can also edit information in cells from here. To the left of that, we have what Excel is calling the name box, which just basically tells us what cell we're in. So right now we have selected Q15, and that matches up here. And then above the formula bar and name box, we have the ribbon. Now the ribbon is what holds all of the functionality that we're going to be using, all the buttons, all the formatting stuff. It's all held within the ribbon, this section at the top. Now there are a bunch of different tabs on the ribbon, and you'll notice that each of the ribbons is then broken into sections. So here we have clipboard, and that contains some buttons about copying and pasting. Then we have the font section, the alignment section, and yeah, a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to go through all of them. So that's on the home tab. It's where the most basic functionality is. If you want to format something or change something, then that'll be on the home tab. If you go to the insert tab, then this is where you'll find anything that you want to insert, whether it's a picture, a table, a graph, whatever you need to insert. It could be a symbol, then it will be on the insert tab. So it's quite logical. Page layout, once again, when you want to change the way the page is set up for printing purposes, then you do that on the page layout. Formulas, where your formulas are, as well as any defined names that you've added. Data tab enables you to add sorting or filters to any data. Any kind of data analysis or tools you might need for data analysis will be stored on this data tab. We have the review tab, which is things like spelling. You can protect the workbook or the sheet itself. And then lastly, view. This is basically in regards to how we are currently viewing this current spreadsheet window. So we could zoom it out a little bit, 50%, back to 100, And right back at the beginning, we have the File tab, which takes us in to be able to open more workbooks, save workbooks, print, etc. And also the Options button down the bottom. Now down to the bottom of the Excel window, we have 3 sheets along the bottom here. So we're currently in sheet 1, but we have sheet 2 and sheet 3, all empty at this stage. And we have a button to add a new sheet. So now we have sheet 4. And just below that, we have the mode. This says ready at the moment. That's because it's not currently calculating anything. It's just sitting there waiting for something to happen. And on the right hand side, we have a couple of different views. Right now we are in the normal view. We also have the page layout view. If I click on that, we'll see it broken down into pages, where we can then add headers or footers as we want. And the third one is the page break preview. Now, since I don't have any information in my spreadsheet at the moment, we don't actually see anything on here. It's just blank. That's fine. We'll come back to that later. But this allows you to adjust page breaks to allow you to fit the information you want onto one sheet, or insert the page breaks where you want them to go rather than where Excel has automatically put them. So if we go back to the normal view, there's one other thing I will just quickly show you. So if we just enter some numbers, and if I select those now, you'll see down here, we now have the average of these numbers, the count, so there's 5 numbers there, and the sum of those numbers. So it's just a little tool that Excel gives to you when you're selecting items. It comes in really useful. You don't have to either manually count things or add in equations for everything. If it's not something that you want, you just want a quick review of the items you've selected, then it will give you the average and the count. And if there was some text in there with what I had selected, then so Excel has automatically counted that, but it hasn't changed the average. It hasn't taken it into the average calculation because it knows that it's not a number and therefore doesn't need to be calculated. If I had multiple lines of text, then Excel would only do a count. And finally, you'll notice that now that we've come back to the normal view, there is a dotted line, or sorry, 2 dotted lines running down the workbook. And if I scroll down, we will also have a horizontal line going across the workbook there. So these are page breaks that Excel has automatically added in. When we clicked on the page break preview and then clicked back onto the normal view, Excel put in the page breaks where it thinks they would go. So if you were to print it, you'd know that anything in these cells would be on one page. And if I go back to the page break preview, then I can see my information and it says it's all on page 1. I'll just add some more information, but I'll add it over here. And some more text just randomly. Now if I go back to my page break preview, we'll see we have this information on page 1 and then page 2 over here. So we can see that this is the page break and we can adjust that as we need. Okay, so that's probably it for part 1. In part 2 of the series, we'll be looking at how we can enter the information into the different cells in Excel and also looking at the different types of data that we can enter. This is the absolute beginner series, so if this is too basic, then maybe jump up to the beginner series and have a look at some videos there. If you have any questions or any other ideas for a tutorial, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.